there, BookTube. Welcome back to my channel. It is Friday, December 13th. We're here for a quick Friday Reads check-in. This week I only finished one book, but I'm in the process of reading several others, so I'm going to tell you a little something about each of them. The book that I finished this week was Travels with Epicurus by Daniel Klein. The subtitle on this one is Meditations from a Greek Island on the Pleasures of Old Age. And Daniel Klein had spent some time in Europe, in Greece specifically, as a young man. And when he turned 70 plus, and was being advised to undergo procedures to prolong youthfulness, he decided not to expend all his resources on fighting a battle that he knows he couldn't win. He decided to return to Greece, return to Hydra specifically, armed with the writings from several philosophers, including Epicurus, and going to be amongst people who were octogenarians, people who were a little older than him, but also who were enjoying their old age as opposed to trying and failing to find and sip from the fountain of youth. So in this one, Klein shares his experiences both at home, where he was advised to have his teeth extracted and get implants so that he could continue eating like he did when he was a young man. But instead he decided to go to Greece, go to Hydra, and surround himself by people who for the most part had embraced the philosophy of Epicurus, that one should enjoy all aspects of one's life, not just their youth, but all aspects, including old age. Klein, in his travels, because this is Travels with Epicurus, he's looking for people who have embraced that philosophy but who are living it to the fullest. And so here he shares anecdotes from his own experience, from his own actions, but also the actions that he observes from other people who are living on this island and how they live out that Epicurean philosophy. I really enjoyed reading this book as an exploration of the theme of aging, but I'm not sure who I'd recommend as a reader for this book, mainly because a younger person might not necessarily see this as something that they should be concerned about during their youth. They say youth is wasted on the young. And gifting this to someone who's older might not necessarily be received in the spirit that the gift was given in, because an older person might think that you're criticizing their current viewpoint if you're giving them a book about how to think about old age if they're already in their old age. So while I enjoyed reading this, and I enjoyed this as a compendium of philosophies about this theme, I'm not sure who I would say would be the ideal reader for this one, but I liked it. So that's the only book that I finished this week. I also started The Fountains of Silence by Ruta Sepetys. I'm reading this with my buddies Doris and Heidi and Patrice, and this one is set in Spain in the 1950s during the period of Franco's dictatorship. And it is historical fiction, so the author is incorporating some excerpts from real history, from interviews with historical figures and excerpts from newspaper articles. But what's interesting is that she puts those bits of history after the chapter where she has shared the novelization of those accounts. And I'm finding this to be a very informative read. Even though it is historical fiction, it is exposing me to a history that I didn't know much about. And it is not just history. This is an issue that is still currently being resolved, because Franco was a dictator in the 50s, but his dictatorship lasted for a long time. And when he finally died, his remains were buried, and it seems buried under conflict, because just recently his remains were exhumed so that they could be moved from where his body was previously laid to rest. And so I'm finding this to be very interesting. The story took a while for me to get into. It's a little bit choppy in that the chapters are really short, and each chapter is exploring a different character. And we're almost a third of the way through the book, but even now we still don't know the information that these characters are holding from us. All of them are fountains of silence. They are holding on to secrets. They're holding on to their own ideas about the dictatorship, about the administration, about their experiences in the country. They're being forced to say one thing publicly but feel another thing privately. And even though all these characters seem to reflect that idea, seem to reflect that repression, they all still have a secret and we don't know what they are. But for now, I'm enjoying going through it. I'm enjoying the buddy read, and of course also enjoying the fact that I'm learning some things about history through reading a novel. So that's one buddy read. And my other buddy read is Wolf Hall by Hilary Mantel, and I'm reading this again with Doris and Heidi and Will and Valentina. I don't think they are booktubers, but Doris and Heidi are. And and I'm really enjoying the buddy read. This is exploring 1500s English history, Thomas Cromwell and Henry VIII at the time when Henry VIII wants to divorce his wife so he can marry Anne Boleyn. But he's being prevented from doing so because he is the head of the church in England and the Pope refuses to grant him that divorce. I'm finding this to be a fascinating read, even if it is one that is a little bit difficult to go through if you're reading it in print only, just because the author, I think, is deliberately obscure with representing who's speaking at any one point. So I'm doing a combination of listening to an audiobook and reading a print version. This is my first time doing that, but I'm finding that it is helping significantly with my understanding of the book because the narrator changes his voice, changes his intonation to reflect the different characters' speech. And so that is helping a bit, but it also means that it's taking a little bit longer to read. So we're reading this at a pretty steady rate. I think we're reading 25 pages a day. I started a little bit late, so I'm having to read a little faster to catch up and to keep up with the group, but I'm enjoying reading this with the group. And I think it's Jason who's hosting a read along of this one in January. And so while I'm planning to finish this one this month, I'm looking forward to being able to discuss it with a lot more people when they read it in that read along in January as well. So enjoying that buddy read. And then because I thought that I could finish this book in a day, I started reading Ernest Hemingway's The Sun Also Rises. And I'm finding links between this and The Fountains of South because even though the main character in this one starts off in France, there are some hints that he will be visiting Spain, and there's some talk about his interest in bullfighting, and one of the characters in The Fountains of Silence is an aspiring matador. So those two books have a link in that they're talking about bullfighting in Spain. So I'm finding that to be fascinating. I haven't read any Hemingway since I was a teenager. I read The Old Man and the Sea when I was in high school, and I haven't read anything by this author since. And this book, the plot so far is following an American writer, is a novelist living in Paris and experiencing the ennui of being someone who has a little bit of money to support himself, and so is able to live a life of leisure and is having experiences that he can fictionalize as fodder for his novel, but is also a little bit plagued by discontent because he's not feeling like he's exploring the meaning of life for himself. And one difference that I'm already finding between The Sun Also Rises and The Old Man and the Sea is that The Old Man and the Sea is mostly prose because most of the book takes place with Santiago aboard a boat alone with his thoughts, chasing a big fish. And this one seems to have a lot of dialogue. We're learning a lot about the characters through their interaction with each other, and so that's a big difference already. I'm not sure what else I'll find as I go through the rest of this book. The novel has about 250 pages and I'm at about page 80, so I still have a ways to go before I fully understand what the book is about. So I'm looking forward to finishing this one, if not later today, then sometime over the weekend. So those are the books that I'm reading right now. I'm still also reading The Count of Monte Cristo, but I didn't make much headway this week, so I decided not to talk too much about it in this video. So that was my reading week. I'd love to hear from you in the comments down below. Let me know how your reading week was. What was your favorite reading experience? And give me a thumbs up if you like this video. Subscribe if you want to see more. Hopefully we'll be back tomorrow for another Vlogmas video. We've fallen behind a little bit on posting the Vlogmas videos. I've been recording them but haven't been able to edit them just because I've been so busy. So we're going to be posting a lot of videos on the channel in the next few days. And I hope you'll come back. I hope you'll watch all of them and let me know in the comments what you think about them. So until then, until we come back for another Vlogmas video, happy reading. Bye.